Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk Show with Waylon Lewis, coming to you live from Boulder, Colorado, the epicenter of self-satisfied liberals nationally. And I'm here with the Fractivist himself, Shane Davis. And this is now the speed round for super tough questions and also really easy, dumb questions. Those are mine, about fracking. So let's begin with sort of a simple one, which is, I'm going to steal from Meg actually, but you'll have other questions. Later we'll go to Meg and she'll have other questions that I failed to ask our executive producer. So my first question is fracking. Like, for people who aren't crazy tree hugger liberal activist types like us, maybe, you're actually the crazy one. I just sit around on my couch and talk. It's not that crazy. And pretend I'm an activist. You're actually doing something. So for people who aren't activists, why should we care about fracking? How does it affect us?
Well, I think when you understand the process of hydraulic fracturing and how unconventional it is and how the process itself and the oil and gas industry have exemptions from federal laws that are designed to protect you.
Like Clean Water Act.
There are small key provisions that are very powerful for the oil and gas industry to have those exemptions under the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, CERCLA, which is a Superfund Act, and a bunch of other ones.
The Don't Cause Cancer to Neighbors Act.
Right. Well, then you have, for example, like the Clean Air Act. You have these aggregated well pads, which are well pads, oil and gas pads that have a lot of holes in the ground, lots of tanks, lots of mechanical parts and pieces that emit hundreds of tons of hydrocarbon vapors, to include methane and other volatile organic compounds, which are poisons.
But they're organic.
Into the air, right?
Healthy.
Well, anything at increased levels are very harmful.
Yeah, I was joking.
So for the average person, understanding how hydraulic fracturing has all of these exemptions and how it harms our water, our air, and our ways of life that we once had. This is not an anti-fracking movement anymore. It's a civil rights movement because our right to safety has been taken away from us by the oil and gas industry.
That might be quote of the day.
It's true. It's true, and I challenge all the industry folk to prove that that's not the case.
I mean, it's interesting. Like right here in Longmont, right next door, the citizens came together and said, we don't want fracking in Longmont. And then Governor Hickenlooper, who's a generally great Democratic governor or whatever, came in and said, we're going to sue you because you don't have the right to self-determine your own.
See, that's exactly the problem. And he always goes back to the old law called split estate that can be modified.
Right.
Split estate, if you don't know the law, it's actually
I went through that. My mom and dad divorced, and it was
very sad. You have mineral rights under the ground that are owned by somebody else, and you have surface rights. The oil and gas industry can come in, if they have those mineral rights, set up shop on your land, on top, and drill for oil and gas. So communities like Longmont, Fort Collins, Lafayette, Broomfield, et cetera, down the Front Range, have said no. These are people and communities that say no, we can't do this because it's harming us.
So the key, if you're the oil and gas industry, is to stop asking the people what they think. Clearly they don't like fracking, and to just start putting up stupid commercials and outspending the people 40-1, as they just did in somewhere. Where was that?
It was everywhere.
Well, they just
Loveland
did it.
And Broomfield.
Yeah, Loveland.
Broomfield,
they barely won. They outspent them 40-1.
So I think this is proof positive that the environmental advocates that are against hydraulic fracturing have proved that their money has no value because we still beat them. They're spending millions of dollars to try to beat us in all these communities, and we won 4 out of 4. In fact, we won 5 out of 5. This last one in Loveland, the industry spent something like $3 million against $7,000 that we spent.
Yeah, and so the $7,000 was largely like Cliff Bars and, you know.
It was coffee funds and things like that. It wasn't what they have. So we're really making an impact, and we're saying no. And the communities are standing up for their civil rights. This is the whole point. It's not that we're all fractivists. We're fighting an industry, and that just is the main issue right now. We don't support hydraulic fracturing.
So in our first video, we talked about how, we don't even really want to fight the industry. We wish the industry would get into solar and wind and like try and make crazy money doing that. That would be awesome. It could happen. Right?
I'm still waiting for the phone call. I can show them how to do it.
Right.
We have hundreds of thousands of people
Yeah.
that are saying no to hydraulic fracturing.
And you pointed out that the ONG, the oil and gas industry, is already the largest user of solar themselves.
Correct. Right.
So one concern from reasonable people is that fracking is supposedly, creating tons of great jobs. How would these counties survive with all those taxes and jobs?
How would they survive without the taxes and jobs?
If we shut down fracking, would Weld County, for instance,
how did we
suffer?
survive before that?
I don't know.
I mean, that's the question, because right now, where is that money going? As I pointed to Weld County, there's still 25% of the children are hungry.
Right.
These jobs are transient. The Colorado River employs more people than the oil and gas industry does.
And the Pooter, where there's tons of tourism, you were saying there's tons of fracking going on along it?
Yeah, all along the St. Vrain, the South Platte, and the Pooter River.
You can just get them up. Up, Red. Go on.
Let's go, dog.
There are my dogs down here bumping the camera.
So,
no. Let's just get them over there.
So this is kind of an egregious act against our wild and scenic rivers and the rivers in Colorado, is that the oil and gas industry and the state have allowed the development of these oil and gas wells, in some cases right next to the river, the stream banks, the rivers, and everything else.
Nuts.
And last year we had our first tropical rainstorm.
Right.
That was great. Not for the rivers or the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, flooded and
almost 2,000 well pads were impacted by flood because the heavy waters, just like what we had last month, flowed down from the mountains, expanded the floodplain, and impacted a well pad on the Pooter River.
And why is that bad?
7,500 gallons of crude oil spilled into Colorado's
toxic chemicals and all this.
Yeah, unknown amounts.
Right.
But the Pooter River is our only wild and scenic river that we have in Colorado. And now it's being polluted by the industry.
So I have some reasonable questions from someone in the industry, because I didn't want to just ask, softballs the whole time of the home run hitter here. So here's some questions from someone who works in the industry and feels like fracking is a pretty good thing. So the first question is kind of a softball, but it's a great one. What can the average American do to lessen our individual consumption of fossil fuels, and can those needs be met now without the use of hydraulic fracturing?
They can be met now without the use of hydraulic fracturing, number one, because America has enough fossil fuel energy stored up to get us through that transition.
And you can still get natural gas without fracking.
We can.
Or oil.
I mean, there's coal bed methane seams, but we've got enough already. So we don't need to continue. We don't need to use this harmful, unregulated, and heavy industry and unconventional method. Becoming aware of what fossil fuels do and how they're a part of our daily lives. Over the last 100 and some years, the industry has positioned manufacturing and consumerism into petrochemicals, so much that almost everything that we have is made by the industry. In some way or shape.
The oil and gas industry.
Absolutely. I mean, look everywhere. There's petrochemicals in your laptop and our phones and everything else.
Plastic.
We have to understand this, that was by design. There are alternatives like hemp, which can produce far more great things than oil and gas. And they're healthy. You can even eat hemp. You can make fabrics. I mean, they're stronger.
No, we just had a hemp expert on the show a couple months ago or something, and he was showing that hemp could also be even stronger, far stronger than plastic. It could be made to make the hoods of tractors, and it's kind of an amazing material. And if you think it's hippie, George Washington and everybody obviously used
Constitution's written on it, I believe.
Right.
One of the official documents.
Yeah.
So just becoming aware, not using or buying those types of things is really critical. Don't buy what you don't need. Patagonia, the outfitter, is actually leading that. They're saying, hey, don't buy what you don't need. Let's buy things that are actually recycled, that are using organic, healthy, sustainable farms that give back to communities to sustain those jobs.
Yeah.
Not just the less than 1% of the oil and gas industry.
And it's interesting to me that people often will say, oh, this is just tree hugger, environmentalist, like elitist talk. But then with their own children, they want to buy organic food. They don't want fracking in their own backyard. Even these oil execs.
Well,
often.
Even Governor Hickenlooper said nobody wants a fracking pad or a fracking well in their backyard.
Right.
Why is he not supporting these setbacks then?
I have a solar pad in my backyard.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so here's a tougher question for you. Or maybe not tougher, but tough for me. All right. I guess we've kind of covered this. Like, how would these municipalities provide services to their residents without the income from O&G, oil and gas. We've kind of covered that. So I'll keep going. If the geology were right for oil and gas development outside of populated areas, would you agree that it could be done at a lower risk? Like, is there a gray area between bad fracking and no fracking?
There is none, because currently with the federal exemptions, the industry can go out there with these unproven technologies that are still harmful to the environment and communities and conduct their activities. So I disagree. Number one, they don't have a true and tried method to say this is absolutely safe.
In terms of the water and the
in terms of the non-beneficial use of our water,
earthquakes.
Thinking about, a horizontal well can use anywhere from 4 to 8 million gallons of fresh water that your tax dollars have already cleaned. Then the industry puts chemicals in it, and now it's considered hazardous waste, and they have to inject it into injection wells. It's waste.
What are injection wells?
Injection wells are large underground caverns where hundreds of oil and gas operators are pumping their liquid waste after
and it just stays there?
Not really. That's the problem. It does migrate.
Where does it go?
It goes and finds the path of least resistance.
Uh-huh.
Right now on the CODCC's project list, they have a number of injection wells.
CODCC, what is them again?
That's the Oil and Gas Commission of Colorado.
I thought it was a punk band in New York in the 70s.
Could be. It's an unconventional band. Yeah.
Cool. Right.
It's very destructive.
Yeah. Yeah. Heavy metal.
Smash guitars. Yeah. So right now, the State Oil and Gas Commission has a number of projects that they're scrambling to try to figure out how to stop fluid migrations from injection wells and from well casings that are actually leaking. They don't have methods to prevent it. So it's always an adaptive management style to say, holy crap, we have a problem. Let's try to fix it and remediate as best we can. And let's not tell anybody about it. Let's keep it hush. Our own aquifer in Colorado was contaminated with frack gas, which is thermogenic methane, not biogenic, and toluene, which is an EPA-listed frack fluid. So the aquifer in Colorado was contaminated. Nobody said anything about it.
A lot of big words, but I'm gathering what you said was bad.
It's all bad.
Okay. All right, so the answer to number 3 is bad. So number 4, it's not biogenic, it's transmogenic.
It's thermogenic. See, this is where the oil and gas industry says you can't prove that it was our gas, our frack gas. Well, the state documents show clearly that it's thermogenic methane, which is isotopically yours, oil and gas industry, not biogenic.
That's like a Valentine's card
from like
send them.
Squish dinosaurs.
Isotopically yours.
That's a great idea.
So I have a serious question. Why is Governor Hickenlooper, who we all loved to love for a while, I mean, he's such a nice guy. He's so cool on so many issues.
He's blocked me on Twitter.
Well, probably his assistant's assistant blocked you on Twitter.
He says that
that's kind of an accomplishment, though.
He says that we don't communicate with him. I've been asking him for a meeting. In fact, in Dear Governor Hickenlooper, we had a meeting set up with him, but he denied us. And then
so if Governor Hickenlooper came out and said, I need to win this election, like, you know how I feel about fracking, but I'm going to change my mind and allow people to determine their own, municipal opinion on whether preemption, thank you, another big word. I like municipal opinion. I think that should be the new word.
Yeah,
on whether they're going to allow fracking in their backyard.
Yeah,
it could be the NIMBY Act of Colorado 2014. If he said, I'm going to support being able to ban fracking if that's what they choose, and he came out, would you support him in his run for governor?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I mean, could you guys come together? Like,
he'd have a lot of documents that I would give him. He would have to sign. I would fill
right if you believe that he actually was going to do that.
If he shut down fracking and actually diverted
or allowed
the research,
municipalities to shut it down, just self-determination.
Absolutely, I think that.
I mean, that would be. That
is a huge step, and this is something that we're fighting for now. Is that we want, like Bill 75. We want to allow the state and the people to have a true democracy.
Right.
That voice of the people is so critical to say no to being poisoned, saying no to this harmful industry, whatever it may be. It's not just fracking.
Because right now we can't actually say no, which is interesting, isn't it?
We can't, and I think if you look in the dictionary, it's kind of under in the F section, not fractivist, but fascism. When you look at the literal definition, you have this iron fist saying, no, you can't do this. Even if the people vote collectively and say, no, we don't want this, the state and the governor are going to step in and sue us for trying to protect our own community. That's absolutely the wrong way to govern a state.
Right. Yeah, so in a state that just legalized like the sale of marijuana, I mean, Hickenlooper's got to realize he's riding a wild horse that he's not going to be able to tame. Like he's not going to beat the people of Colorado as governor of Colorado and remain governor. So if he watches this, he can change his mind. He can tweet at
Call
you
me.
or tweet,
I'm sure he's got
unblock
my
you.
number.
Yeah. And then you two could like come out of the courthouse holding hands, and he'll win. He'll get every like crazy activist back on his side, right?
Probably not. He's got a long way to go before he can, we can have beers together.
But I guess I'm asking a sort of serious
Snuggle.
question because, well, we don't need you to snuggle in 2014. 2015, maybe that's a realistic goal. But like right now, he's in danger of losing to a Republican. Republicans love fracking. Like he likes fracking a lot, but Republicans love fracking.
Yeah.
I love Republicans.
Yeah.
It's all a lot of love.
Sure.
But I mean, how do you feel about sort of the liberals of Colorado are basically like handing Republicans victory? I mean, it's Hick's fault for being on the wrong side of this, but
This is a game of poker.
right.
If we're going to call his bluff and say, hey, you're not going to get reelected,
Right.
we have 6 and 10% of that vote.
Well,
right
but
now.
that's why I'm proposing in my
Right.
fantasy land that if he changed his mind, could he get your guys' support again? Or are the bridges too burned?
No, I don't think the bridges are too burned. We can't say that in totality. I think the bridge needs to be established. And he's always said that we're not communicating with them. I've asked him for years to
Right.
have a talk. And in fact, don't block me on Twitter. Let's have that conversation.
Well, and he canceled a meeting you had at the
He
Capitol
did,
and all
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So the communication is there from us, whether he considers us.
But would you go and actually talk with him, or would
Sure,
you just be angry at him?
No, not at all. I would show
Okay.
him
Yeah.
the oil and gas failures and how he's
He might just
failed.
be scared of you. You wear black and sunglasses.
I'd wear white or red like he does.
Yeah.
So whatever works.
Right.
Doesn't he wear blue? Over red, yeah. Blue jacket over his red
No,
sweater.
I don't know. I just am still traumatized from him being naked in the shower
I know, right?
in his ad in 2008 or whenever it
50
was.
Shades.
No, it's a great ad. Anyway, I would just love to like have Hickenlooper win and no more fracking. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be great.
Come
It
on.
would be great.
All right.
And then we could grow hemp.
Call me.
And then we can, yeah, please do. And then we can install solar panels on his house, have him drive a Volt or even a Tesla.
Or
Which
bike.
is
He
fantastic.
bikes. He's
Would
into
love
biking.
to see him bike. He could bike out with his helmet on. We'll sit down.
Right.
We'll have tea.
I like this. This
Let's
is
do it.
great. I'm totally serious.
And we won't drink fake frack fluid. We'll have organic tea because some of the water is still clean.
But not organic honesty because Coke bought it.
Right.
So, this is actually possible. Like this morning I was actually Facebooking in this day and age with Congressman Polis, who had some, compliments for you and some questions for you. Like, people care, the politicians care, whether they care about the issue or not. They definitely care about getting reelected on
Right.
some level.
Sure.
So, the pressure's on. So let's continue with, are we way over time? Okay. I'm not very good at rapid fire questions.
This is good.
Yeah,
I like
okay.
it. Spontaneous is good.
All right. Do you believe that domestic natural gas, domestic's an interesting word if we're shipping a lot of it to China,
Sure.
natural gas development can play a role in providing a cleaner, more affordable fuel source that could eventually take the place of coal and oil? Do you see it as a transition fuel while we move to renewables like solar and wind?
Well, it's a great question. It's a fair question. I think
That's
that,
a question from the industry friend of ours.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a great question. It's fair. I think that what is that transition? What does it look like? What does it encompass? Is it going to be 100 years as the industry wants to extract the remaining fossil fuels? If so, absolutely not. We need to transition now. These are the types of things that communities can build, the type of sustainable solutions project type of wind, air, and solar, and have solar communities all across Colorado. We can't say
What's air? Sorry, wind, air, and
Wind.
solar?
Oh, I'm sorry, wind. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wind,
Like
water,
wind and air.
solar.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but basically,
Geothermal.
geothermal,
whatever.
yeah. Anything that's going to be a renewable, non-harmful a method of healthy energy. So back to the question, I think that the transition should have happened years ago in the 70s, and I think Carter tried that. Even before that, Tesla had harnessed energy that was fantastic. We need that type of healthy energy. The only way we can do that is if the governor steps up and says, we're going to take X amount of this severance tax, and we're going to charge the industry from what we've already grandfathered in as far as oil and gas extraction, move those funds, and give long-term jobs to communities to say, okay, Boulder County, create solar gardens, create wind farms, do all these things, and sell your energy to other counties.
And this isn't pie-in-the-sky stuff.
It's not.
I mean, we've seen it happen here. Like we were talking about a couple of years ago, citizens of Boulder, I don't remember how it happened, you probably do. But anyway, we voted all these subsidies for national, on a Colorado state level for solar, and the industry just blew up. Like there are jobs everywhere. There are solar panels going up. I put mine up at that time.
Well, let's look at like Lighthouse Solar. I think they've packed their bags here in Boulder, and they're moving on because the political will and the system that's in place for permitting is so difficult.
What do you mean they're closing down?
That's what I heard.
Wow. They're the ones who did my solar.
That's Scott Franklin's. Fantastic. So let's look at how the government is actually harming these people, and they're losing
real long-term jobs. Yeah.
These are local jobs that were built by this community.
Wow.
That are going to the wayside. So we need to actually invest within our own infrastructure, and it's not unconventional methods sending this oil and gas to another country.
So let me jump over to Meg, if Meg is still with us. Meg, do you have a mommy question? She's a mommy.
I am.
I'm not a mommy.
I guess I have two questions.
Oh, that's not fair.
Well, my first question was, I've been listening to all of this, and I still feel like if I was at a bar and I was hanging out with my three friends who are
it's probably not if. Just to be clear, it's probably not if. When she's at the bar.
Next time I'm at a bar and I'm with people who are maybe what I like to call apolitical. They're not conservative or liberal. They're kind of like, ugh, this is getting too much, like the fighting, whatever. Mm-hmm. Because what would I say to them? Like, what three things could I say to them? Like, this is why you should care, and it's not political. It's not about the governor. It's not about industry. It's not about the EPA. But, like, just like these, like, if you're a mom or you live in Weld County, which that's where I grew up, like, what simple, like, I'm talking to a drunk person things could I say?
Yeah. No, I think it's a great question. Let's look at the health factors. Again, I talked about the exemptions under the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act and things like that. We have a great issue, and it's 50 shades of I love clean, non-toxic water. And drinking beer and everything else, especially in Colorado, is that when we look at the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission's failures, roughly 40% of all oil and gas operations have already contaminated Colorado's groundwater. So water is a huge issue in that it gets removed from the hydrological cycle. So if I'm going to tell somebody over a drink, I'm going to say, our water, the very water that is used to create that craft beer that Colorado loves so much.
And it's huge for jobs and tourism.
Huge for jobs, huge for recreation, tourism, everything.
Right.
Our water is being removed from that system, that natural system, and it's being poisoned by the oil and gas
industry. But the industry people say that the percentage of water is like 0.001 or something. Like it's nothing.
Well, they do say it's 1/10 of whatever, and then they divert the topic over to agriculture using 86% of Colorado's water. Agriculture is a sustainable job here in Colorado, and the water goes right back into the system. But over the course of 30 years or 10 years or 5 years, let's look at the hundreds of trillions of gallons of water that the industry is going to use and contaminate. So water is a huge issue. The other one is air. When you have these well pads that are emitting hydrocarbon poisons because they can legally do this, keeping in mind that they're invisible, you can't see them, these chemicals, as I know, I lived in it, I had a bloody nose. Every single time I go out to Weld County, I get a bloody nose, I get headaches. I had my blood tested. It had ethyl benzenes, hexanes, styrenes, all of these chemicals that the industries are using in the air. And so there's this chemical trespass. Their chemicals, their byproducts are being released into the air, and it's now going in your backyard. So, and our civil rights to safety. Fracking is coming to a backyard near you. Do you want that? What is it? Let's get educated. There are so many organizations in Colorado now that are going to educate you on hydraulic fracturing using the state's own data. It's not made up data where We create drawings and schematics and say we have sock puppets and we eat cheese whiz.
Well, you're referring. We were talking about before. Last night I think I was like clicking on some YouTube video. It was even unrelated to fracking, and it was some oil and gas industry ad under the name of EPA, ironically. But what are they actually called?
Environmental Policy Alliance, and they're targeting big green radicals.
Big green radicals. And it was like making fun of like the people who are against fracking as being, one was like moonbeam hippie guy, one was a sort of like gay guy. I mean, it was like a kind of offensive
absolutely
ad.
Horribly offensive.
Yeah.
And there's no moral structure with what they're doing, and it really gives them a black eye. So
that's a quote
keep
right
doing
there,
it.
By the way.
That was helpful. So if I were to just be really like just talking really directly, I would say like they're stealing your water and making it super dirty. You're making the air really dirty and harmful, and they took away your right to safety.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're stealing our water because they'll say we own it and we have more money.
Yeah, they're using our water. Yeah.
But we're paying. They're stealing our tax money because we're cleaning the water. La la la.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
They're basically making your beer. What I would basically say is, your beer is turning into cancer, and give me your keys. You shouldn't drive.
I love that. That's what I'll say. Thank you so much.
So collectively, these things are those elements that we need to live. Period. Those are the things that we need to live and thrive in our
communities. Beer and what else? Nachos.
Beer,
that's agriculture.
Cheese whiz.
Yeah.
Yuck. Glows in the dark, I'm told.
So can I bring it back? Because I'm being told to wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Meg. I love, that is sort of the thing, is like, you know, there's so many numbers and whatever. Numbers don't really stick with most of us. It sticks with you, clearly, and it sticks with President Bartlett, but most of us can't remember those kind of numbers. So, but speaking of numbers, a couple more questions from our industry buddy. What percentage of the state's tax revenue is produced by the O&G industry, and if we were to lose that, how could we transition, you know?
Well, we currently have 52,000 oil and gas wells, give or take a few.
In Colorado.
In Colorado right now that are active.
And they're all over the U.S. too, right?
And they're all over the U.S. So do we not have enough severance taxes right now that are already grandfathered in that will continue to generate from hydraulic fracturing and the grandfathered wells? Do we need to drill more? Absolutely not. I ask all of the industry, where are you shipping this? Where is it going? It's not for Coloradans at all. It's not like I go to the gas pump and the price of gas is now 22 cents or $1.50 or $2.
Right.
It's still almost $4.
Right.
Right. So it's a great question, but we don't need more hydraulic fracturing. We can transition out of this easily.
So my favorite sort of personal question is, I feel like living in Boulder, I go to all these sort of righteous activist meetings, and then we go home and we all want natural gas ovens. So like on a very personal level, like what can I do, not even on an activism or voting level, but what can I do, you know, bike, not have a natural gas oven, like what things are good to do?
Just be extremely conscious of what you purchase. Again, go into any supermarket and look at all the different kinds of toothpaste. How many kinds are there? Do we need that many kinds? And what are they made of? Most everything that we buy is made from a petrochemical, whether it's in the manufacturing portion or in the consumer portion. I think that we need to be very, very aware of not buying stuff that is made by the oil and gas industry.
Toothpaste is made by...
Everything is dominated by oil and gas. Even the manufacturing, the
actual
packaging tubes themselves, everything.
Yeah.
So we need to shift out of that framework.
You can go to Lush and you can get, in a paper package, you can get...
Squeezable?
No, that it's just a paper package, and you have toothpaste and you chew it up like gum, and then it's awesome.
Perfect.
No plastic.
So consumerism, we are so desensitized.
Thank you to our sponsor. No, really.
Yeah, right? It is now.
Yeah.
We are desensitized with just buying so much plastic crap.
Yeah.
That we have to change our way of thinking and our way of life. Obviously, biking, use different types of transportation. Obviously, there are Go cars now that are solar. They're great. They're everywhere. Bike, walk.
That's the car share thing? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bus.
Sure, absolutely. Use all of these things. Now install solar. There was a place in Loveland where we were trying to set up solar on somebody's home. They couldn't do it because the city didn't have the capability for the homeowner to actually install solar. It's the electrical interconnectivity to the grid.
Wow.
And so I think you have to, as a community, go to your city councils, go to your county commissioners, make sure that you can have these options in your backyard and not under the sort of umbrella of oil and gas.
But if we do all that, how are we going to have time to like all that stuff in our newsfeed? You know?
Well, we can hire people.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's a real honor.
Thank you, Waylon.
All right.